Is my lighting good enough? I don't have any of my
You look
lights
so
on. I
good,
have
Mark. Are
some
you
natural
kidding
light
me?
coming through.
The light is beautiful. You look beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
now we are live here one more
What?
time, laying it down with Big D. I am your host. Whoop, yanking my headphones out. I'm your host, Big D. And today I'm joined by Mr. Get the Bag Mark Latreille. Mark, how are we doing today?
I am doing excellent, Mr. Big D. It's a pleasure to be back. You know, we had an episode that was it's in the ether
Lost
now,
in the wind.
and we're here, dude. I've had a great day. Before this, I had a busy little weekend, but yeah, no, today no casting. Just here for Big D, and so yeah, I've been just chillaxing today, but I don't know. I'm ready to yap.
I like that. Yeah, you and I have been doing a little bit of yapping before we even started recording. A couple of certified yappers. Well, since that episode got lost in the ether, we will act like it never happened. And I want to go back in time here.
Let's do it.
Mark, when did you start with Counter-Strike? Like, where did esports draw you in, and when was Counter-Strike an important part of your life?
So Counter-Strike came a little bit later on. Esports drew me in. I was a Call of Duty gamer, on console for most of my life. I actually did start out playing Halo and stuff on the PC, so I guess it was inevitable for me to come back. But through Call of Duty YouTube, I think every kid found themselves to be an Optic or FaZe fan, and I fell in the first of the two. I was an Optic kid, dude. I wore literally I had Optic gaming t-shirts that I would wear to school and stuff. And I was proud to be an esports fan. It was a great time in esports, but at that time COD was super big. I mean, it's huge now, but it felt like that was when it was in its prime and it was really thriving. And it was through another NA org, Team Envious, that I found out about competitive Counter-Strike. And I was I saw the Happy Deagle Ace clip, and I was I gotta see into this game, because I don't know, Call of Duty just was really underscaled. It didn't really feel like it was too professional at the time, especially to other scenes, maybe Counter-Strike, that did have more than just majors, but significant investment from other parts.
Yeah. Well, and do you feel? I know this isn't a Call of Duty podcast, but I'm curious. Do you feel do you still follow Call of Duty, and do you feel like it's gotten more professional as time has gone on, or do you think it's kind of its draw is being that kind of hole in the wall dive bar-esque feeling, or has it become more of a professional thing by this point?
So here's my story. Well, esports drew me in through Call of Duty, and I wanted to be a professional player. So I started I think the first one that I was really trying to play, it was game battles in umg.com. I booted up my account, I lied about my age, and I was let's play some Call of Duty Ghosts. And that was I was getting cooked. It was not too great. And I can't remember I think it was Ghosts, Advanced Warfare, and then Black Ops 3 in that order. And there was always this thing of the exclusivity of it was always to Xbox, Call of Duty would be advertised, right? First on Xbox, and then what year was that? 2015. PlayStation bought the rights, and oh my goodness, we have is that cat's name Momo? I saw you open up Salvatore's episode saying hello. Oh, we have the whole gang here.
Yeah,
Hell
the whole
yeah.
gang's up here. They're excited for Get the Bag Mark.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. I'm loving that. But yeah, I even had a little team that I played with, other 13 and 14-year-olds and Advanced Warfare. We played on the competitive mode. But then that summer came, and we were getting ready for Black Ops 3. And I think I was about to say that I grew up on PlayStation 3, and so I learned patience. I was, waiting a month for DLC. I was on the non-primed console for COD. But then I got an Xbox One, and I thought I was in the zone. I was ready to game. And then PlayStation bought the rights. And I literally remember sitting there watching that live stream going like, I'm cooked. But it only wasn't that they switched the consoles. It's that PlayStation was starting the Call of Duty World League, or just might have been the CDL at the time. I can't remember what it was. And since that's PlayStation investing in, it's a rated M game, right? Like we have this conversation like with, some of the younger players, especially in the donk era of Counter-Strike, like how they're allowed to compete and stuff. You had to be 18. And like I was like 13 at the time. I'm like, dude, rip my competitive dreams. This ain't working out. But like at the time, there was a guy called Hook, a guy called TJ Halley, a couple like young players that like had to retire, go do other like esports. Like Hook went and played Halo and like, won some championships. I wasn't doing that. So it was basically around that time that me and my friends started to get more into Counter-Strike. And I feel like that's when it became my main game. You know what I mean? Like I just felt like that was what was catching on, what catches on for you and your friend group, but also what caught my attention.
Well, and what did you play a lot of Search and Destroy then on Call of Duty before you came over to Counter-Strike?
Oh yeah. No, I definitely did. I can say that so in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, I was pretty good. I was top 100 Big D in the competitive playlist, but that was just because I was like grinding hell out of it. You got like a special like coat of armor in the game and stuff like that. In Search and Destroy, this is what I'm about to brag about. I had a 20 kill game in Search and Destroy. Okay, for those of you that want to know how impressive that was in the 4v4, go look up Crim6. He was on Evil Geniuses at some UMG event in Ghost. He dropped the 20 bomb in a comp match. Obviously, I wasn't playing tier 1 COD, but yeah, man, I did. And then when I found out about CS, I was like still going back and playing COD a little bit because it wasn't my full game for, some time, like I talked about. But I was like, I loved Search and Destroy because Call of Duty was totally just like ripping stuff from, the Counter-Strike theory. Like there was always a guy on the team. Like I was an Optic fan. A guy you might be familiar with is Formal. He was a guy that was a multi FPS champion between COD and Halo. And he would always like grab the sniper and like go and get opening picks and stuff like that. And it started to like, I started to like exactly how Search and Destroy just became like the most interesting game type. Like, I feel like, Optic was really terrible at Search and Destroy until they like got their dynasty roster. And so I don't know, they would just get smacked around and I couldn't really accept it. But like me and my friends, playing just like want to do the troll stuff. Like you would see great YouTube videos of people like ninja diffusing, you're not playing the game, you're trolling around, actually playing the game. Search was the best game mode.
Yeah, it's definitely the thing that I think other than Team Deathmatch I've played the most on COD, but I played Modern Warfare 2 a couple years ago when the reboot came out, but that was the first time I'd played Call of Duty since Modern Warfare 2 prior. So big gap in Call of Duty.
Not hitting the same anymore. Not hitting the same.
Wow, man, it did though. It was so fun. Like I remembered like why like as
the
as
campaign was so good. I don't know if you're a campaign guy, but
oh yeah, that was one of my favorite parts of Call of Duty.
Totally.
Is the campaign. But like I mean, it's just a fun game. Anybody that talks shit about COD, like yeah, it's different than Counter-Strike, but it's still, oh my god,
it gets a little bit of a bad rep.
It gets a bad rap because I think more people play it and more casual gamers play COD than
you're aiming on joysticks, right? Like
exactly, like oh, it's not real or whatever, but like it's still an amazing game. Well, how long was it before you finally made the switch all the way into Counter-Strike? Like it sounds like there was kind of a transitionary period between picking it up, playing it with your friends, but COD still being in the background. When did that switch kind of officially happen?
I think it was around, oh goodness gracious, probably around 2015 or 2016. That had to be the year around, that whole PlayStation transfer and stuff. But like later that year, I think me and my friends just like started getting better at the game. Like, thankfully, me and my friend that were first getting into it had another friend that had been playing for a while and was able to like hold our hand and, you know, be able to carry us for so long. But like, you know, eventually we started making more friends on the game and I just became more familiar with the culture, you know, like back then, I mean, like I posted about it on Twitter a while back that I found this random like it was like the E-League thing that they had on like the Buffalo Wild Wings tables whenever they were like having that sponsorship and stuff. Like I would start watching the YouTube videos. Like, I mean, this was in like the, you know, first year of Stewie 2K. Like it was a great time to be a North American fan. And like, I mean, it was honestly the Stewie stuff all on top of like finding out about Envy, finding out about like Get Right and Forest on Nip, and just like learning about this entire internet, like it feels like the soccer of esports, right? Like the football of esports, like this very international, like, you know, feeling thing. Like, you know, COD was, you know, very based in the United States, kind of like how, you know, CS is in Europe. And like you'd only have like one or two European tournaments, and like I would stay up for those and stuff like that. But like those scenes were so small. And so when switching games and kind of realizing that kind of the shoe is on the other foot now, and that like I always loved watching sports and, you know, cheering for the underdogs, and I feel like you're a part of like a bit of an underdog scene, kind of felt interesting once I really understood how many levels there were to this thing.
Well, and yeah, we have been in an underdog scene for a while now. I do want to get
Yeah.
into that with you, but the last question I have kind of about your journey with Counter Strike is, when did you start casting? Like how long? When did you start competing after starting to play? Like you said, you played on
Yeah.
some open teams originally and made your way up to main. When did you start competing, and then when was the transition into a caster? And then we're gonna dive into how underdog of a region this really is.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But before we get there, you're right. So I think that okay, it was around my sophomore year in high school, I think. Maybe my junior year. I think it was my junior year. So like 2000 and what? 18? 2019, something like that. Um, I you know, at that point, like me and my friends, like were very aware of Face It. Like I had an ESEA account. Like, you know, I was rank C. I was terrible. And then like I don't know, man. I just became like I realized I had free will, and I realized there was like ESEA forums, you know, and so I don't know. Me and like my boy, I'll shout out my boy Georges for the one time, but he had a D- ESEA account, and we wanted to start an open team, but it just wasn't gonna work. But you know, we became aware of this, and we like put up some bullshit ESEA forum that's like, we want to start a professional team or something, and like people, I literally had a guy message me and ask me about salary, and I was like, whoa, I did not put up the right post. So I found somebody else's that was like first time team, you know, type thing, and I was like, this is interesting, but like I didn't really contact the guy. I just like became aware of the open skill level. And then like randomly I was like streaming on Twitch, and like this guy came in my stream and was like, "Hey man, you're pretty good. You want to join my Face It team?" And I was like, "Sure, bro. I'm streaming pugs by myself. I don't have much else going on right now." So yeah, it was like this guy and his like friends and his open team, and he was like, "Yeah, man. Basically, if we can practice to be an open, and if we win open, like we will." We will be scouted by pro players and pro teams. And I'm like, dude, this guy is cooking, you know? And like I was a COD fan too. Like I wanted to be a COD pro player. And I will note that like I really enjoyed the commentary of COD. Like, you know, shout out Puckett, shout out Maven, shout out Mr. X, like shout out Benson. There's a ton of goats over there, man. And like I know that there's a COD event in Dallas this year, so I'm hoping to pop out to that as well and actually watch COD for the first time. I got to see some LAN Halo. But I think I joined that team and I kind of just like played some with them, and I kind of just like, you know, had the environment and I got used to it. And then like I think I got a job at Papa John's and that my friend had got me. And I was like, maybe I should just like stop playing, like, just chill, maybe play some pugs, like enjoy my junior year of high school. And then bam, COVID occurred. And then I sort of dove back into, ESEA and the team stuff. And then like I did find my eventual first open team. And that was pretty cool. But then like I found my, actual first open team that I stayed with for 2 seasons. That was a lot of fun. My open IGL, okay, this team was called Defile. Sorry, I'll backtrack a little bit. And I'll I could probably talk about these dudes for a long time because they're all awesome, but I'll shout out one guy and one guy only. Rap for No Reason, Mr. Alec. I still talk to him to this day. He's actually the guy that recommended that I like fill out the LCA Google form, which is something we'll like get to. Like basically, I'll fast forward through the rest of the playing stuff. I was telling you right before we went on that like I joined a main team. And I eventually inherited the roster. That roster got relegated. We were under Orion GG. Shout out to Orion GG, man. Those guys are, still, I believe, they're not involved in Counter-Strike. They're involved in other games. Really cool people. And I was a part of that org for like 2 years. I like think about that, or especially when I was playing, I was like, dude, this is cool. I'm like on a team and I'm doing it. But, placing like under 500 in main. And then relegation came and I was like, this isn't good. And then like, I was gonna shout out the rest of my team there, but shout out Addis, Rhino. That was the next team that I joined after that.
All these people better be watching,
dude. Yeah, they will be. I promise. And a lot of these people are still around, but are like, somewhat retired. Some time has passed, and I'm the youngin'. Like, I got added to Addis with one of my teammates from that Orion squad, and I played a season with them, but then they rebuilt. I'm actually like very good friends with them. It was a shame it didn't work out, and I liked all the people, but like I started to notice a bit of a pattern. I'm like, I keep joining teams, things happen and then like they fail, and I kind of suck at the game. Like I was like in main and I was probably dropping like 70 DAR, like 75 at best. And like, I honestly I could not like bring myself to DM, man. I don't know what it was. Like, I just like, I don't know. I couldn't do it. I lost the passion for it. Like, it was all the drama and all the mix. I really liked getting on for Team Prac. Like, I think the theory and the whole team play of Counter-Strike, like playing scrims, so much fun. So much fun. Playing league matches, awesome too. And that experience is great, but like if you can't do it outside the server, if you can't bring yourself to do that, then you probably shouldn't play like I was doing, right? And I was resultably getting worse for that. And I think the last team I joined and really did well with was called Standing Dude Side, and I was playing with my boy Lyle B. I think they're still kind of around. I don't really know. Shout out Xeon, shout out all the boys over there. And we went 500. And I like posted like my best competitive season that I ever did. And like in main, like statistically, the record, obviously, like I just said. But after that, like, no shade to them. This is going to make them sound bad, but they cut Lyle and I. And it happens, it does happen. Yeah, but I was like, yeah, like, I don't know. It's cool I'm making friends with this. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I really didn't know what I was going to do. I wasn't seeing like, I wanted to make advance so bad. I wasn't really seeing a path to that though, either with the opportunities or how hard I was pushing myself. But I wasn't ready to give it up, So I joined another main team that was comprised of Evan Kaw, Trigger, a guy named Twigs, and I can't remember the last guy's name. He was the homeboy though. Obviously, some guys that are still playing, like I just named, which is kind of funny, right? Yeah, shout out Evan Kaw, obviously playing in ECL.
Don't worry, me and Evan Kaw are cool now.
Yeah, and they came out to that Vegas LAN. I was sad that I was
really cool to see them
there
at LAN.
It looks like so much fun. But yeah, like after like 3 games, 5 games, I think we were like 2-3, man, and we just decided to kill the team. Like, and I was just like, can I swear on here? Can I swear on here? Just can I use my one F bomb?
Let it
I was
rip,
like,
baby.
fuck, dude, like this is cooked. And around that time, I don't know, man. Like, I just didn't play on a team for 2 weeks, and then like, and I will like fill in some context through all this time and be competing. Like, I had friends over on Yikes Gaming and so many dudes over there that I still love and talk to till this day. But I would cast their like IM playoff matches and shit, and like I feel like I'm a pretty good natural yapper, but like, your friends say, nice stuff to you. These are good friends, but they're like, hey, like, we actually enjoy listening to this back. Like, you have a lot of fun while doing it. I'm like, yeah, I do have fun doing this. And like, the reason I am doing this is because I have had interest in commentary. So it was after that. Oh God, I can't remember. It was B-Hop Academy, that last team was called, with Evan Cod and all them that I just mentioned. But yeah, that team died. And then I'll connect the seed from earlier. My boy Rap for No Reason, sent me the LCA like tweet that had a Google form attached that was like, hey, like, we need some more casters for this upcoming season. Fill out the form, no experience required. I was like, cool. I don't know what I wrote in there to like, get a nice look when they were real busy, but I might have included the fact that I had some playing experience and had, commentated some games for some friends. But yeah, one day I was, I think I mentioned earlier, I think this might have been in a one-on-one conversation with you, but I worked at Domino's as a delivery driver for some time, and that made it really complicated to like compete and come back and forth. I'm going to go on a really funny tangent one time, or for 1 second. When I was playing with that B-Hop Academy squad, there was one time I was really late to practice for like a crazy reason. One of my last deliveries of the night, I like thought I didn't find a dead man, but I found an old man passed out in his house who was like, come, deliver the pizza to my apartment. The door's going to be open. Cause like, some people do that. They're having a party or whatever. You walk up, give them the pizza. And maybe this guy, like, he sounded old on the phone. Maybe he had bad hearing, whatever. I'm not like trying to be mean or whatever. But dude, I like saw this guy and he had his TV real loud and I was standing in his door. I was like, sir, I got your pizza, and he wasn't waking up. And like in this minute of me like, hey man, like I'm here with your pizza, I like got progressively louder. And I was like practically screaming at the guy, like, yo, like, what's going on? And I was like, oh my God, today is not the day. Like, so I sprinted across the hall. I got the neighbor. He called 911. And then 911 is like, have you guys entered the apartment yet? And we were like, no. They were like, yeah, go ahead and do that and like put the guy on his side. Like, you're saying he's on the couch, and we're like, okay. So, the guy's on the phone with 911. I'm like moving magazines off the other side of the couch so we can like put this guy's legs up. And like,
My God,
like a horror movie, I'm picking up this magazine and I turn and I'm like looking at this guy and he wakes up and he's like, what are you guys doing in my apartment? And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm your pizza delivery driver. Like, you weren't waking up. We had to call the police. Like, at this point you can hear the sirens. They're right around the corner. And like, he's like, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I just got diagnosed with some new medication. I'm just getting used to it. And I'm like, that's okay, man. That's okay. And he like paid for the pizza. He tipped me well. And then I had to like, explain to the cops what had just happened. And they're like, yeah, that's cool. And I'm like, oh my God, I still have another pizza to deliver as well. It was like a double delivery. And then I like pulled up to the next guy's house. I was like, I needed a vent to somebody. I like told that guy everything. I told him everything. And he was like, damn, bro, here's your money. And like, I left. And then like, I'm texting like my parents, like, oh my God, this crazy shit just happened. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm late for Counter-Strike practice. And so I text the group chat, like all of this. And like, it was, I'm some like, I even get it brought up to me by like Twigs every once in a while. And I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen. There were a lot of like crazy stuff that, caused me with that job. Not like too bad or anything, but, running around trying to make a 7 o'clock practice when getting off at 7 o'clock, right?
not going to happen when you're a delivery driver.
Nope.
especially an EMT delivery driver for Domino's of all things. My
Apparently.
God. Well, that's fucking wild, man.
So I
Jesus.
think, yeah, where that tangent was connecting from was like, um, at Domino's, I got that text and I was like, yeah, I can get off and come home and cast, you know? And so it was that like, I would work Wednesdays from 11 to 7, right? And I think like rush shifts on Friday and Saturday when league matches and stuff like that wouldn't happen. Right.
right.
So whenever I was stopping playing and then just transitioning to, I didn't know I was transitioning to casting. You know, I just started casting for LCA and like, and I was kind of like, wait a minute, like I'm all of a sudden like casting games and this is like a thing. And I'm also getting paid like, you know, $15 or like whatever the minimum at the time was, which is like insane. And I was like, wait, I have a second job. Like, what is this? You know? And so I don't know. It was just honestly so sudden. Like, I feel like I was just kind of in LCA and this is when like, you know, I feel like there wasn't a ton of casters, you know, besides like the main bunch. And I mean, it was cool that I had game experience. I think that's why they wanted me to join. But I did well on my like first couple of broadcasts. You know, there's like advanced, you know, main maybe BO1s. Um, and yeah, I like joined and I just like, I don't know, like I just kept doing it. Like I don't know, casting just became like a thing. Like I had always, at one point, I was like driving around for Domino's while I was a player, and I like thought because I, you know, had always like liked
Looking for
casting.
dead bodies.
Like I probably after it just got done, like, you know, handling whatever was going on, you know. But I was like, I don't know if casting is actually a thing that like I could just pursue, you know. Like I feel like you've probably interviewed a lot of casters, and then they like just they kind of just start doing it, you know. Like it's just like it, you know. I feel like there was only few casters whose stories like Dinko, who's like knew he wanted to be a caster at 16 and started grinding, you know. Like I was like 20, and so I don't know. I just started like, you know, grinding those BO1s and like I became a part of a different type of community. And I felt that I was still enjoying the game and all the most exciting parts of it. Obviously, making new exciting friendships, making new connections, but without the added stress of being a player, you know? So I don't know. Like it felt like I was dipping into a whole new world and that one that was probably better for me.
Unbelievable sights and indescribable feelings. Those are lyrics from the song "A Whole New World" from
Okay.
Aladdin.
Okay.
So yeah, dude. No, it is the same story for most casters. Like you said, like nobody really gets into casting and is like, or like starts getting into games because they want to be a caster.
Right.
It's like
Right.
that's something that's kind of a talent you start developing once you realize you're not going to have the time, drive, or energy for what it takes to be a player. Because as I get older, I definitely am like, oh, yeah, you know, the age limit on esports is so silly. Like, I get everybody's young, but like,
Yeah.
the amount of like time and energy that goes into being the best at these games that millions of people around the world play is it's unreal, and it's really only something that a teenager has that kind of time and energy to do, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's no surprise that like casting is kind of a next evolution, and like you said, it's just way less stressful. You get to have the fun watching it.
Totally. I think at a certain point when I was growing up and I was like, you know, I was watching esports, like I said, I've been like into that for, you know, for a little while now, like since like 2013 or whatever. But, you know, you know, you see all this sports memorabilia mixed with the esports stuff behind me, mixed with the, you know, Funkos or whatever. Like, you know, I've been a huge like Packers fan, you know, Bucks fan my whole life, like whatever it is. I've been playing sports too. But like, I don't have to get up in front of the camera right now. Everybody's seen me at Frag. Like, you know, I'm not the biggest dude out there. You know, when I played football, I was an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman, but like, you know, I'm 5'8", right? Like I knew I probably wasn't gonna like go play in college or whatever, or even like, man, I didn't even play varsity, you know. I did. Like I wouldn't start varsity though. I was like getting in the last 2 minutes with like we were down by like 45 because it was not a good program. What's cool though is they turned the program around. Those kids are having a better experience than I did. But I don't know. I felt like even when I like was watching college football and all this stuff, like, you know, especially some of the commentators for collegiate are just like way more passionate than, you know, the guys that like Joe. Shout out Joe Buck. He's from St. Louis, but you know, you could raise the energy sometimes, my friend. You know, I don't know. I had this thought that I could become a sports commentator and still be like a real sports commentator and still be attached to, you know, football in some way and these sports that I, you know, wanted to play, but like maybe at some point, like I wouldn't be able to compete or something like that. So I think that's originally where the thought happened. And while I was wrestling with how I wasn't going to be good enough as a gamer, like, you know, that's definitely what I came to, especially when I just talked about like my cutoff was physical in football. And that's, you know, what draws people to esports, right? Like, you know, there's like a famous Jordan Nothing Gilbert documentary where he like talks about, you know, his beginnings in hockey and stuff like that and playing with his brother and how he was always smaller than the other boys. And he kind of had to be more, you know, tenacious than everybody else. Like, you know, take a guy like, you know, Donk, who, you know, may have not like, you know, I don't want to speak on Donk or any of these guys that like, you know, went and chose this path, but like, you know, a lot of these guys did it because they maybe got injured or had an opportunity out of sport. Like, I think if I'm remembering correctly, like Olaf Meister, you know, hurt his knee playing European football and like, you know, then went more into esports that way. But I don't know. For me, I don't know if it was like my drive that wasn't good enough, right? Like earlier I was saying, like, I didn't even want to DM or anything like that. So there were definitely people that could deserve more things over me. Like I wasn't good enough. Honestly, Big D, like I know that like I have a bubbly personality and like that's obviously something we both have to have as casters, right? People gotta like us. I had multiple people tell me when I was playing that like we chose you over other average people, like because you had like better vibes or a better personality. And like on one end, I was like, you know, that's cool. I feel like the personality higher and I'm quirky and whatever the fuck. But also, I'm like, are you telling me I'm dog shit? Like, what are you saying to me? So I don't know. I guess like I said, I feel like you know, I found my right lane in this community.
Yeah, well, and having a bubbly and outgoing personality is definitely crucial to any talent
Yeah.
in any industry, and so yeah, you feel very natural in what you're doing with casting and stuff. So it feels like it is the right lane for you,
Thank
right?
you.
Like
Thank you.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone ever say anything negative about Get the Bag Mark. Actually, I know I haven't. And not that I hear a lot of people say a lot of negative things, because one thing that surprises me about our scene is how little like gossip actually goes on. There's some,
I like
just
the
like
gossip.
anywhere, but yeah, like there's actually very little gossip that goes on. But yeah, I
Sure.
mean, and everybody
No,
has nothing but praise for you. So
that makes me really happy.
I know
I appreciate that.
it should. Well, I'm going to segue into our next topic here.
Excuse me.
Because I want to pick your brain a little bit. You are very well researched when you do your cast, and I think that's something that has elevated you to a more professional level. And obviously, you've been doing it for a while. This cat is determined to be a part of this interview. Yeah. What North America? You cover both North America and you cover South America quite a bit, if I'm not mistaken. What is kind of the two? Both regions are underdeveloped, underperforming regions on the global scale of Counter-Strike. What do you think that the reason is for those two regions, and what do you think they could be doing to support each other better to get higher on the global scale?
Okay, I'll come out and say this, right? This conversation comes out, you know, when the old major system was happening, when like, you know, North America was like, you know, barely qualifying with two teams. And like, so there was that time that 5 South American teams pushed through to the next round, right? And that, you know, brought an RMR spot back, you know? So the understanding that we are a, you know, counterpart of one another, right? Like, I feel like the United States and hold on, I one moment.
Somebody's here.
Alrighty. All right, we are here. We are here. I think my dad may
And we're
even have an
back.
appearance on the Flash. But yeah, no, I'm just
Hell
telling you, I'm going to
yeah.
see a movie after this. So we're figuring out some dinner plans. But that's in a while. Where exactly was I? Okay, yeah, we need to. I think the understanding that both of our scenes kind of feed off of each other way more, and honestly, it's came back way more this direction recently than it's gone down south. So I feel like the understanding that like we are one in the same out here is really important. Obviously, there's geographically challenging things, right? Like it's really hard for North American teams to play against South American teams and vice versa. Are there South American teams that are lacking opportunities because the South American scene sometimes has, and they have had to go play North America and have played from there? Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, it's an interesting issue. And I think for the most part, people are starting to understand that, we'll scratch your back, you scratch ours, like it'll be mutually beneficial. And I think that like some sort of understanding of that, North American players and, anybody that's comparing these two scenes, particularly the beauty of South America, um, I think so we can maybe start on North America and I can transition there. Like, I think, I was actually just talking to my friend about this today. A part of the reason why North America, and this is not really my opinion, but a part of the reason why North America doesn't have, as high of a Counter-Strike culture as opposed to, maybe Call of Duty and console games is because, we have a different culture of consumerism here in the West completely, right? Like, people have their own PCs at home, right? Like, and it's way more affordable for you to have a $500 Xbox, right? So, like, maybe a lot of people aren't playing those computer games. And because of this, like, culture, you don't have nearly the infrastructure of internet cafes, unless you're. I think there are, or were significant communities in California and on the East Coast and stuff like that, which is great. And I think even in Toronto as well. But I feel like you hear so much about how much that type of culture of, going to the local internet cafe, playing against everybody on your block, right? Then becoming the best on that particular, group. And then, maybe you kind of move on, right? Where I feel like in my experience, it was like I get introduced to games through my brother. Like this is almost, I feel like the clear and cut, like cliche and like, pro gamer story in North America. But like, you go and listen to a lot of those other stories and they all start at an internet cafe, right? Most North American stories always start with like, I was watching my older brother play and I wanted to be better than him. Like that was me and my brother at Call of Duty. So I don't know. I think that, having a lack there of that culture, is definitely, it's not like that was something that existed and that stopped, right? It's just like, I feel like, people ask the question why NACS is just so small and honestly how it's like gained way more coverage, like, in the years of its popularity. It's because, people have become more active PC gamers and like, even more casual players. Like I feel like more of my friends that were, I was considering casual gamers back then would like, eventually, a couple of my nerd friends, 3 of them are playing on their PCs. Like I was the nerd friend and then all of them get computers, So then we're all playing CS. And I feel like there was some of that growth. Whereas I think you do have, some of that in South America. But obviously, like, with so many different scenes in South America and being, all exchanged and, organized where they are geographically, they sort of had to grow on their own, sort of like how maybe like the East Coast and the West Coast did of like, Counter-Strike culture. Cause like, dude, out here, like what you think of and I'm talking about the Midwest where I live in St. Louis. And I'm proud of it, right? Like I love the Midwest and, like Frag used to come here. Frag used to come to St. Louis. Like, obviously, Frag used to come to Chicago. Like, those were very popular. Will probably happen again. Like, and obviously everything's going on in Texas, but like, there's like, it was really cool for me to grow up and realize that, going to my first Frag and going to like BYOC lands in St. Louis, that like there is a community here, but it's so small. And like, it was a little funny. Like I went to a BYOC land and like I've gone to 2 lands in St. Louis where like I've gone with like 4 other people I've never met before, you know? way to get kidnapped or whatever. But like, dude, I mean, this is the internet. Like, this is how you go and like, explore some of these gaming communities that like, you're just trying to figure out. Like at that time, like I had never been to my first LAN, and like, I was really lucky to come out of COVID, and the first frag LAN is in Brentwood. I'm not going to not go to that. And when I did, like, dude, my eyes were open as to not only like the other people I was meeting there from St. Louis, and it's like, oh, you've been living there your whole life, and like here we are, and like even nowadays I go to frag and I like meet people from the Midwest, and I'm like, here we all are. Like, where was our Midwestern gaming community? And like, I don't know. I hope to continue to see it grow. That's why I think like collegiate programs and stuff like that are pretty important. But like, you can talk more about the South American part. Like, one of the particular regions that I'm pretty passionate for. You can obviously let's go Bestia. They just made the major, so that's insane. I love Bestia, and I really love Argentinian Counter-Strike. When I've had the opportunity through CCT and stuff to cast South America, I mean, I've been living in North American Counter-Strike in the history of that for like 10 years. But when the greatest pleasure of like our job sometimes, Big D, I know you cover some EU and you get the opportunity to, even cast Nippa on LAN last weekend. Like, you go down the rabbit hole of research and like you just learn so much. And when like I was able to open the book to the South American scene, and like, people like, Phi, Exner, Tony, like a ton of my friends are like, telling me all this crazy stuff that's happening in South American CS. Like, we all know what Fury is doing and getting crazy at the top, but like, there's some awesome stuff going on. And like, the Brazilian community's great. And researching that down, sort of being like shoulder to shoulder with the Argentinian scene is super cool. And like, I think there was a little bit of, more of that like LAN cafe culture there as compared to America, where obviously the culture of consumerism was a little bit different then. And, other challenges too, like, it's interesting to see where these lands get built up. And like, I don't know, it just feels like this is going to maybe sound like a baseless opinion, but like to have the experience of having to like, I don't know, I get to wake up and like, as an American, and like, maybe I have a computer downstairs. It's a family computer. Like, that's a cool experience. But like, if I have to wake up, me and my friends at like after school, we're going to all go to the internet cafe together. Like, sometimes I wonder what that experience would have been like, and stuff like that. But obviously I got to play Minecraft till 2 a.m. on my parents' PC. So I'm not regretting it too much. But I think the overall point that like, I've gone to yap about and comparing these two scenes and, how we can, grow together is by understanding the, I think small variety and where we come from as a niche scene comparison to Europe. And that's why you should go and cheer for all your South American teams, right? I mean, like, maybe if they even come in North America and play like in our events, like I know that bothers a lot of people and stuff like that. And even right now there's conversation of, Russian players that have moved to Canada, right? These 2 Swedish players that are living in Canada right now, playing on this new Moneyball roster. Like, I don't know. It shakes a lot of NA players because they want to see NA teams in here. But a lot of those scenes have been, building up and have been looking for those opportunities. And, you see the legacies come to North America. Well, it's only helped develop their scene, right? At this point, right now, the South American scene has more opportunities in North America. And it's because they have built something beautiful down there. I mean, it's really passionate and it's built on, I don't want to say love and be like cliche, but like it's built on real passion for the game. And like, it's really cool to see how they come together, maybe throwing a tournament at a damn train station or whatever the hell was going on there. But I think that, more and more with our new tournament reigns, dude, I think we're, 30 minutes into this thing and we're like mentioning VRS for the first time. The coolest LAN match that I've ever gotten to cast was, obviously NRG versus Sharks. And to have that opportunity to like, one of my cousins is like, adopted from Brazil. Like, I don't know. I always thought that was cool to like, think about that scene. And like, she ended up getting married to a Brazilian man. So like, it was really cool. They just had an awesome Brazilian wedding this year, and it was really cool. Like, I'm kind of rambling, and that sounds kind of silly, like coming out of it, but there were so many of those opportunities where, I don't know, I reflect on my family and like, the overall North American experience. Like I'm also like, I have so much love for Canada. Like a ton of my family grew up in Canada. Like, and once you realize that, like our entire little continent over here, like all, the two of them that are connected, like that we just sort of go back and forth. And if we kind of looked at South America and North America, you can't look at them as the same. Obviously, that doesn't work. The competitions aren't the same, right? But I don't know. I feel like there should be more appreciation for that, competition wanting to come to North America and, continue to grind with us, because look at how it worked out for South America. That's all I'm saying. And we have that variety in our day-to-day lives, is what I was saying with, our families and how that may, reach as well.
Well, and I agree so much with you too. Like North America, if there's something that could really we have the talent in this region, we just don't have the like culture, right? Like we don't have the culture of going down to the land center every weekend with your team and playing. I think that's why we enjoy watching a team like Fisher College so much, is because those guys
Fisher.
we know are, they're down there playing together all the time, and that's why they're able to go to these LAN events and punch above their weight class. So yeah, I do think that getting to the land center and playing together has got to be one of the most crucial parts. And shout out to Fragadelphia for what they're doing.
Hell yeah.
They're trying to bring a real land circuit to North America. Well, okay, I'm not going to keep you the whole time here, because Mark, we've been keeping these to around an hour-ish, 42 minutes to an hour. So I got two more questions here for you. The first one, give us some major predictions here. You got North America, and if you've got them, some season 7 Impact finals coming up here in a few weeks. If you have any predictions for that.
Well, I do. I can maybe start with Impact. I'm obviously a little bit biased.
Lay it down.
I'm a big fan of the FlyQuest Red and obviously Ninja's Impact roster. And that's because I've like done, work for them and have like gotten to watch those rosters a lot. But I'm really looking forward to seeing that finals actually kick off soon. I don't know. I mean, for FlyQuest Red particularly, I mean, for the North American squads going in, I think I can start on that conversation. Like, obviously brackets are really fucking terrible, man. Like I hope they do not bring in that best of one nonsense to the beginning of it. Like I may be strong worded, but like you can't have best of ones in those rounds when, it's a championship, tournament they are playing here, Big D. So that's always something that like has gotten these North American teams, right? Like I'm really excited to see this new MIBR team on LAN. Obviously, they've, reshuffled and, rebuilt into, where they've gotten. I'm obviously excited to see the French team Prototype Blaze pop out. Obviously, KOD, former FlyQuest Red. It's hard for me to walk into this conversation, talk about the other teams, talk about the development of the regions without being like, yeah, you got like all these teams that are like scraping up to do it. But whatever side that Imperial Valkyries is going to be on that bracket, right? Like this is where the bracket conversation was going. Like they are going to do it. And like, I feel strongly about that. I think they're a really great team. And like, we all know why. They're, very insane, built from the top up, right? I in terms of storylines, I think it would be really cool if Vilga was able to, maybe meet that in, what would be a pseudo final or maybe even the actual final again, like talking about how the seeds might go. But general predictions, I think this is the best shot that both North American teams have coming in terms of the form at which they are reaching before the tournament. FlyQuest Red and Supernova Comets are putting in a ton of work, obviously, in advanced. And, Supernova Comets did, I would say the hurdle wasn't as, high as it was in that previous season where FlyQuest Red beat them in a very close best of 3, right? This time it was just that same close best of 3. It turns the way of Supernova Comets. So the fact that you have two teams in North America that are neck and neck with each other and that can continue to raise that bar, Big D, is really important. And so go look at the results from Vegas. I know that you were there, and I would have killed to be there to see this, dude. I mean, in that playoff function, Supernova Comets almost gets Game Hunters out of it in 3 maps. One of them went to overtime. I mean, that shit's fucking awesome, excuse my language. But I mean, I'm really excited for those 2 teams to reach into LAN. Again, like, obviously, I think the addition of Marie has put the FlyQuest team in probably the most cohesive situation of the roles that you have seen. Probably since the original edition that you had of Melcy. I said Melcy and Cads almost. Kelsey and Mads. But I don't know. They seem very comfortable. You have to really praise Emmy just like transitioning to become an opper and is still the 3rd highest rated impact player. I didn't expect that. And like, I can't tell you that I don't know who they were going to pick up. There was not that many oppers out there. And for that to be their risk and having it pay off like that is just pretty insane. Shout out Emmy. I mean, she's done a wonderful job. But yeah, I think that it's going to be probably, even that for that sense, right? I was just yapping about South America and that MIBR roster. I think that, for the Americas, including North America this time, I think you're going to be seeing the best results in the Season 7 finals. We transition to the major now.
I like it. No, I like it a lot. Yeah, I do want to second that. Watching, I didn't see as much of FlyQuest Red. I mean, they had to play NRG as the first playoffs team, which was really brutal for them. They had high spirits the entire time. I talked to Emmy before she went in that, and she's like, "Yeah, give me your energy." I'm like, don't they? Is that what you want right now?
That's
anyway.
Dude, the vibes had to be raised. It was actually a nice Inferno that they played in the second map. I don't think the close was too first, but I mean, it was cool to. I was like I said, I do some work for FlyQuest Red, and I think I got to. I know I got to talk to Vanessa about it, and like obviously they love seeing those teams come back out to LAN. Like there was Ghost there as well. And so continuing to raise that experience, because that those European teams, like, I mean, they are going to be getting those type of reps and have access to like, a lot of boot camping opportunities as well. So, I mean, you got to take those steps as a North American project, Big D. I got the major thing pulled up, all the stages.
Yeah, dude, I'm ready to hear these major predictions. I just want to, I'm really excited for these impact finals.
Are you going to be there?
I'm not going.
Are you going to? Okay, so you won't be in Dallas. You're going to be in Austin.
I'm just going to say, no, I'm not going to either one. I'm frag only events this year.
Respect.
I'm doing only I will care about the world stage of Counter-Strike and pay close attention to it when North America is heavily competing in it.
We're back.
In the meantime,
we're almost back.
Yeah, we're almost back. We're almost back. And I mean budgetary reasons, but no, I'm actually pretty bummed I'm not going to be in Dallas. I went the last 2 years. I saw you there last year, obviously, but I'm not getting to go this year, and I'm bummed because I think I would be more interested in the Impact Season 7 finals than the actual IEM event there, just because of how exciting it is. But that being said, let's hear those major predictions.
And I will say, I don't know if you're aware, but unfortunately, the only Impact you're going to be able to watch in Dallas is those finals. And I know that those are the Impact stage had to, I think, unfortunately not be added due to logistical reasons this year. I don't really know. I've heard some stuff. Either way, that's obviously a bummer.
That's a bummer.
But Big D, I will be the first in line.
Get to watch more of it.
I will be the first in line to get in there before the finals, man. I don't care about the finals in Dallas. I will be there watching that Impact final more than anything. And hopefully there's going to be an NA team there. But yeah, man, I'm really happy with how the major kind of cracked out here. And, especially the North American teams that came through. Obviously, maybe we can start there. You had obviously Complexity, Wildcard, Energy, Blue Jays getting info, Marsborn, Nouns, Might. Love Might. I don't think they were serious competitors, and unfortunately Nouns weren't, reaching in too hot at that point. That sounded like a big diss to Might, but unfortunately they weren't swinging too hard. It felt like coming into that. Marsborn, I felt like was a sneaky one that, could and almost did best the Blue Jays to eventually challenge for that last spot. Getting info definitely could have shocked some. Getting info online, that was really scaring me, Big D. But yeah, I think Blue Jays, the whole, I mean, let's talk about the conversation, right? They like swapped out Wolfie for Dare. Not only like are you changing out a player like 2 weeks before ECL playoffs, Thunder pick, we can go down the list, right? Frag Vegas, and here. And, I have a lot of respect for everybody on Blue Jays, like just straight up, right? But it's my job as a caster to say that obviously that was controversial. No doubt about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that, I'm not going to call Wolfie their best, or Wolf. It is Wolf, by the way. Like Commander Wolf. This is a PSA for all you that don't know. Swedish American IGL sniper and very handsome guy, Wolfie, and then the other very handsome gamer who was just playing with Daku is Wolf. Like, apparently it's Commander Wolf from Star Wars. I'm not too familiar myself, but there you go.
You got me.
There you go. Yeah, no, I just had to cast Daku versus Blue Jays last week, or versus Marsborn, excuse me, and that was one I had to put a fine line down to, Big D. But yeah, I mean, obviously they were that fourth to get in, right? But like, I think when it was coming down to, either Blue Jays or NRG, having to qualify, I think like for the, betterment of our region. And it's no diss to like what people are talking about Blue Jays, how they're, I just saw Freshie talk about that NRG tweet yesterday. I think it is in a little bit of bad taste for them to like say that they're like the Timber Sons or whatever, but obviously you attract, controversy like that when a move like this will happen. And some people will have a little bit worse taste around it, right? But regardless, maybe swayed a little bit of public opinion right before that, but when has that ever mattered to, like, I mean, just go play ball, and they did. But like
public
I was
opinion
saying,
doesn't matter on the court.
Exactly. But like I was saying, I think like if NRG didn't make a second major in a row, like, fuck, man, like that was the only thing I would be able to say. Like that really would have hurt to see for a team that needs that so badly. But I was really happy to see them obviously make the major. And as for expectations, I think that complexity wild card and NRG do serve an interesting look in this first round. It's going to be an absolute bloodbath, Big D. The first round of, some of the matchouts are coming out. That's obviously like we're watching, getting ready for our pick'ems, Big D. This is the pick'ems conversation. Like I believe complexity is looking into OG. I'm looking down the line here. You have Wildcard against Fluxo. Looking into two matchups like that, I think that could be potentially 2-2-0s for the starting lineups, and then NRG into Tyloo, which could be challenging, obviously. And you have Lin Vision, shout out Call Me Sue, who came to Frag X Tap 1 and is now in the major as well. Like, I don't know how many teams we're going to be seeing through in the Americas to the playoffs, but fuck that. You just got to get it through to the second round. You got to make sure you're cutting it up that way. I don't really have too big a harps down here. I think at the stage one, I do have high expectations. I don't have high expectations for complexity. I think I have fair expectations for complexity, heroic, probably bet boom as well. I think that wild card is interesting. I'm a fan of OG as well. I just got to watch them yesterday versus Zero Tenacity over on Thunderpick. And I think the Metasport is an interesting one, obviously, to watch out for as well, right? Like, cheer for your South American teams, right? Go out and cheer for Imperial. Go out and cheer for Fluxo, Bestia. I know that the spots and all this doesn't, like, work out like it does anymore, Big D, like, for, getting those qualifying, lines for the MRQ or, how that used to work on land. But cheer for an Argentinian team at the major, because that feels damn good, right? And that's what Counter-Strike is about. I know Launders likes to joke about his racism, but, it's more about, dude, we live in a fucking world where a Mongolian professional sports team is an esports team, and it's like one of the most recognized of their nation. They're obviously getting the recognition from their government and stuff like that. That's really damn cool. But yeah, I mean, I think, you obviously have Aurora, the Turkish lineup. That's going to be interesting. But like, I think that, you have a lot of conversation to ask around, is G2 even like a contender here? Are they a dead team now that we're talking about like two guys potentially coming in right after? Like, what's the deal there? I was just listening to, I think it's Yanko, Sponge and Moses' show. I can't quite put my thumb on
talking
talking
counter.
counter. And they had the conversation as to, would FaZe be viable to push playoffs here? Dude, Big D, if you're in the crowd, if you had to pay $900 to sit on the floor at Austin and you could see Elige, Simple, Kerrigan, and the boys rock out there, wouldn't you want them to? Hell yeah, is the answer. So I
Yeah.
don't know if it's gonna happen. It would certainly be a crowd pleaser.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if how this Simple coming to play with FaZe for a couple of tournaments for both Dallas and the major, I think is going to be really exciting. I hope good things happen from it. Simple's story since Counter-Strike 2 has been
I'm rocking
frankly
with him. I don't
depressing one.
like the silly like website training thing that he did that like was a scam. But
Yeah. What I mean, I have so much love and respect for Simple as a player, and on a human level as well. He's
yes,
obviously somebody that's gone through ups and downs with this being his passion in life. But
and
I
very
just want to
publicly
see
as
him
well.
as
I mean, it's been very interesting.
right. He lives it very publicly. So I have nothing but love and respect for him. But I definitely want to see him come back and do right by Counter-Strike 2.
It was
And
just crazy how this happened.
I'm hoping
too.
this isn't some gimmick.
It feels that way. I don't know what the wording around this is. Like, I know that Kerrigan is like, this is one of like there's verbiage in Kerrigan's statement to imply that this could be just like a Hail Mary, last move, last dance. Like, I hate the verbiage of that nowadays because like Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams ruined it when they were, rocking out with the Packers where it seemed like 2 last dance seasons. But like, it's going to be interesting to see if that actually does work out. The little kid in me that was watching in 2015 is going to love seeing Elige and Simple back on the same roster. Like, you can't keep me from watching that. But yeah, I think I want to have just this up in the air. Is Vitality doing it? Are they doing it?
Yeah. I'm in my opinion, yeah, Vitality we've entered the Vitality dynasty era. Rop's being picked up by that team is
Rob's kind of goated,
yeah.
man.
He is, and
Yeah.
Rops has been in a good spot with FaZe for a very long time, but he does not have a player like ZywOo on FaZe. Like ZywOo, and you could talk Apex and Kerrigan are probably pretty similar in experience as far as veteran IGLing goes.
Sure.
But FaZe Brokey is not ZywOo. FaZe does not have a ZywOo, and Rop's finally having that kind of like magic opper to work with, and ZywOo having that magic rifler to work with. It's just a match made in heaven to me.
100%.
And I'm very biased because I have been following this Vitality project for 5+ years since they started, and I've been a big fan. So I'm just really excited about it. So I hope they win, but obviously I'm just excited for a good North American.
I would be happy with that. I feel like I would be satisfied with that. As a fan,
deserve it. Yeah.
Navi's on the way back down, unfortunately, too. It feels like Spirit's kind of like maybe run out a little bit of fuel. I hate to, I do love, like, I don't mean to get political at the end of this stream. Obviously, there's like, reasons.
Oh, feel free.
There's obviously, controversy as to, the Falcons team and stuff like that. But they're obviously creeping into, what happens to be, probably like a top 3 contender swinging into the major. Obviously, you get into fan favorites and Nico and Monesi. Obviously, that's definitely going to change public opinion around your team and whoever they may be playing under. But I don't know. I feel like I have given like I for one, I feel like maybe forgot a little bit about Kixan after Apex a little bit. And I feel like I'll credit Vincent and Tony, why not, for like, I feel like I have a whole lot more respect for Kixan and where that project does get built. Obviously, when you have an organization that is, we're not going to like get into any of the back end, but they're essentially playing like, Madden franchise mode with the salary cap off, right? Like they can sort of do whatever they want. And I mean, that's something that like thinking about that part, it may like, cause a little bit of rift. I'm a fan of the players, and where that could potentially go, as Nico goes for that illustrious major eventually. I hope he wins one. I hope he does.
I hope he does too.
Yeah, I mean, I wish he was under the G2 banner though. And I feel like somebody's got to like, shake awake G2, maybe shake awake Liquid as well. I wonder if there's a conversation as to maybe if Brokey's to replace Ultimate, but I don't know. Maybe are we to free mobs? What are we doing over there with G2? It's going to be interesting to see how that kind of goes after the major, Big D. But I don't know. I'm really overall looking forward to this major, right? Like I think M80 getting this pop into the second stage is obviously an insane opportunity for them, being that like, Complexity goes and plays a couple of tournaments and, a week later they would have had that spot, right? I mean, this is how the VRS game goes though. And obviously there was a lot of conversation prompted around from Swisher's end as to like, some of the loopholes that are like forming from the VRS and some of the qualification system, Big D. But one thing that I think is a cool point for us maybe to riff on as we end the podcast here is all the concern we had for this first major with the VRS, right? I think like the only real complaint that I could give is that I think I can't exactly name them off the top of my head, but the GM for Complexity tweeted like, you added like 8 more teams to the major and you didn't add a cent more to the prize pool. So, what are we doing there?
Yeah, I'm really frustrated by that. I think that $1 million twice a year is a joke for how much. I think it's a joke on a level of Counter-Strike being up there with like StarCraft, League of Legends, Dota, having those kinds of games have these like tens of millions of dollar prize pool for their big tournaments each year, and Counter-Strike having just as much story. And my big problem with this, Counter-Strike prints money. Unlike like those games make plenty of money.
Give me my sticker, give me my thing I put on my gun as well that flops around, Yeah.
Counter-Strike is printing money for Valve, so for them to not budge on the prize pool of these major tournaments for 10 plus years now, and especially after coming out with an entire new system that's going to be based on like your major is going to kind of mean nothing in your bounty system if it continues to be such a small prize pool, because I just don't think the prize pool separates the major any. Like the major is just literally the major in title now. It's not like you won a major and you're this giant, whatever from the prize pool.
And obviously, I think everybody's always going to acknowledge that, the PGL, I think it was Bucharest event, the one that was, a little bit smaller. That was, I think, the only PGL stage event that they've had out of like, or rather arena event out of the ones that they've hosted so far. That was like, $1.25 million or something like that. While I do agree with you that the money does mean a lot, and I think that Valve does need to pick it up on that end, the major's always going to have like, I'll use like the aura word around it. Like, it's always going to have that emphasis. It's always going to, have that kind of, I don't know, if you don't have that thing, right, then, where's your respect, right? People are going to look at Nico's entire career and be like, this guy didn't get his Super Bowl, right? Like, Aaron Rodgers only has one. He's no Brady. And that's, everybody's looking to that greatness within the conversation. And that's very interesting. And I think it's starting to become as simple sort of gone on. But even that conversation was really cool when you would consider like him the best at the time or whatever it was. Zywoo and Vitality right now more comes down to the teams and, what those accomplishments mean. But like I was saying, I think that, I don't really think we had like too crazy of like a like fraud team slip into the major or something that like, people were really concerned about, right? Like, I mean, I'll face into a bit of the, worst part of our community, right? Like this first came a conversation when like, people were frustrated with, obviously, more frustrated with the Imperial FE team. Obviously, that was more of a conversation because they're an impact team, right? There's no ignoring that. But it really created this concern around who was going to get invited to what, even though that was like literally at the beginning of February. Like, honestly, the only concerning part with the VRS system hasn't really affected this qualification. It's more of like the really fascinating part that, like, even a moment ago, right? Like, we were riffing that, like, a bit of our scene is political, and like a lot of the stuff that drives this business is everything that's like gone upon the last year with how these different tournament organizers are, beginning to, maybe even kind of leverage in what they want, right? Like ESL seems to have an idea of stuff going on and, where they would like to bring stuff. And obviously there is a discussion in the scene about that. And, where maybe PGL or maybe Blast or how Valve feel about that. And so it's like, it's sort of like, it feels like a bit of a political conversation that we have around this thing where it's like we're, sort of controlling it as one group. And it's allowed for, I feel like, a lot of people, to open up the, door for bad conversation, like I was referring to, like stuff that's really just kind of a waste of time. Like, oh, why are these, random teams getting invited to tournaments? Whereas I think that there's so much awareness, so much more awareness, and a lot more people becoming educated about like kind of the back end of how everything works. Like, probably more and more people going to check what VRS points a team is going to get off the game. Like the other day I had a CCT game that I saw a team had a scheduled conflict, right? I mean, all I had to do to go to figure out which tournament they were going to play in is, how little or how much VRS they could gain off the system. So I think that the conversation around how our tournament and game is supposed to be looked at and is interacted now with Valve has sparked just really fascinating conversation, and where, Big D, we may like point to concern with investment from Valve in terms of like, money being brought into the major, or where, tournament organizers are at negotiating those things, right? With prize pool and the franchise fee or whatever they were, absolutely calling that. Like, it's really fascinating to see how our, sport is, starting to interact with it, and, seeing where, how, Valve is gonna, allot these things. So I think that it's sort of the next step to, where we're exactly going to be kind of looking down the pipeline the next 10 years and seeing how these VRS points are going to be racking up. Because, I mean, a positive end that we can already see is, dude, I mean, the last, Fragadelphia, barring M80 and Complexity not coming, and unfortunately NBK's like roster, you had a ton of teams, tier 2 teams coming out to local lands, which, as we talked about at the beginning of the episode, right? It comes down to local lands, in-person opportunities, development within your communities, in your region, to actually lift up and develop you. So shout out VRS, obviously not perfect, and is made for an interesting one, but this major's looking good, and it's made the tier 2 scene better.
For you, couldn't have said it better myself, Mark. I am going to ask you one last question, and please, after I reinforce what you just said, yes, what I saw last weekend is why VRS is so cool.
Oh yeah,
you are giving these other tournament organizers an opportunity to start lifting these regions up in a healthy, like, Valve can't open a bunch of LAN centers across America, but they can open up a system that allows for more people to set up more LANs to create that better culture within our region and other regions. So yeah, 100% agree. I'm loving VRS, even if it's got its kinks right now. So yeah. All right, Mark, my final question for you that I ask everybody here: if you could give yourself one piece of advice, talking to your younger self, talking to the younger generation out there, what is the advice you would give? And it can be Counter-Strike or casting or playing related, or it can just be general life advice. Get on a soapbox and preach.
So it may be kind of general life advice, but like, Big D, you've seen like the conversation of like, that's kind of been memed about online, that like, the nonchalantism that's been considered like, oh, this guy doesn't care, he's really cool. Like, maybe that culture is starting to change within our society, and maybe it's cool to care. now. You know, I feel like I grew up and was like, I don't know. I talked about at the beginning of this episode, like I would wear my Optic Gaming shirts to school, but at some point I feel like I was really afraid of like how people would perceive like, you know, a lot of what I did as like, you know, I was a gamer and like, you know, I was actively playing like varsity sports, but like I didn't want people to know that like I was on a Counter-Strike team, you know, but like, you know, here I am, right? Like I'm 2 years into casting. I've been a part of the scene for like 4, right? And I mean, Counter-Strike has made my life. And so it kind of took me growing up a little bit, and even like a college professor to like push me to like uh I like wrote in like a introduction to the class that like I was involved in esports, and every day this guy would be like in front of the whole class like, how was your league match last night, or like we have this guy coming, he's a gamer, like some shit like that. But I was like, there's nothing to be ashamed about. Like, you know, everybody's got their own shit going on. Like I should embrace like, you know, more of what I like. And like I don't know. That's why I don't know. Like for so much of my time, I was like, you know, gaming within like my circles, so many of my friends. But you know, I spoke about earlier in the episode how like I'm a really believer in like collegiate programs for North America, right? But like, how do you get to a collegiate program? And it's by probably having like a high school program or a middle school program where you're like encouraging kids to go into games. And I hope that like, you know, and I do like we were just saying, like I think this next generation does realize that like, you know, maybe not being the nonchalant dude won't make you popular or attractive, you know, maybe being passionate will. And like I hope that, you know, if I can tell myself something to like kind of embrace that passion earlier, like I feel like I did, but like at some point I was like, you know, afraid of what, you know, people might think of me for being a gamer. But like here I am, I'm a caster. Like I can say these things proudly. Like I go to school, but like I don't have another job. Like, you know, it's because I'm living at home and in college. But like I'm a caster, you know, and I can be proud to say that. And like I don't know, I hope that more kids don't think it's fucking cringe to like, you know, want to go be a part of their high school esports program. Like I'm not gonna lie to you. The first time that like I think that was produced, like we had like a school news that we would watch like in our homeroom, and like there was one day that like did a story on the kid that was making it, and I'm not even kidding. This is just a funny riff. He was like playing Counter-Strike on the Xbox or something. He had like an Xbox like remote, which like I did download and play that, so it was funny. But I was like, dude, who are these, you know, noobs that are probably silver, you know, that are, you know, wanting to make this a club? But it's like, well, fuck, man, it's got to start somewhere, you know. So I hope I would go back and tell myself to, you know, hopefully embrace, you know, maybe fully embrace that passion maybe a little bit earlier on. It's obviously hard to do that, but maybe you would help the world a little bit more.
I love it. Yeah, embrace your passions early on, and don't be embarrassed, because one cool thing the internet's doing for
Can
us
you
is
believe it?
showing that
I
all
used
the
to be
niche.
embarrassed about being a gamer and shit. Now look at me.
How?
You know? Exactly.
How?
Exactly.
He's
It's because
top of the
I thought it
world
would be
here.
uncool. You know, I was a football player and shit. How many of those kids did I go back and game with though after every practice? That was my friend group,
Exactly.
right? So it was
Well,
all
and now
there.
they're all wishing they're doing what you're doing. So, jokes on them. All right, Mark, that was real, and that was fun, and that was also.
Thank you so much for having me, my man. Again.
Oh, yes, for real this time. Okay, and.